The Kingdom of My Divine Will, in the Midst of Creatures, Book of Heaven, Volume 32, Part 6. May 28th, 1933. Precipice, Doors, and Living Hell of the Human Will. Doors, stairways, and living paradise of the Divine Will. Necessity of its knowledges. Royalty that the soul acquires. The daughter of the great king. My poor mind many times struggles between the infinite beauty, power, value, and innumerable prerogatives of the eternal volition, and the precipices, ugliness, and evils of the human volition. My God, what a contrast! Such that if everyone could see it, they would lay down their lives rather than do their own will. And while I was feeling all trembling because of the grave evils which my will could hurl me into, my beloved Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My blessed daughter, courage. It is necessary that I let you know where one can reach by holding my divine will as one's life, and into what abyss one hurls himself, who lets himself be dominated by his own will. Even more, each evil I make known to you about it is a door to the human will that I have you close, and a guard that I give you, so that, if you want to enter again and descend into the precipice of the human will, the guard may reject you and keep the door shut. And every time I add to it, by letting you know more evils of the human will, those are nothing other than defenses and guards that I add, that they may not let you descend into the depths of its abyss. In fact, you must know that all the evils of the human will are nothing other than many distinct doors which it possesses in order to descend into the kingdom of the evils, of the vices, of the horrifying terrors of a living hell, to the point of rendering oneself nauseating, unbearable, to God and to oneself. And I, by making its evils known, do nothing other than wall up the doors and place my seal, saying, "This door is to be opened no more." Now, just as the human will has its doors, its stairways, in order to descend, not to ascend, into the abyss of evils, so does my divine will have its doors, its stairways, in order to ascend, its heavens, its immense goods, and forms the living paradise of one who possesses it. And each knowledge that regards it is a door that is opened. It is a stairway that is formed. It is a way that opens before you, which you must cover in order to possess with facts what you have known. See then the great good of the many knowledges I have manifested to you. They are as many doors that facilitate for you the entrance into its kingdom. And in each door I placed an angel as guard, that he may hold your hand and lead you safely into the regions of the divine will. Each knowledge is an invitation, and a divine strength that is given to you, making you feel the extreme need, the absolute necessity to live of divine will. As it makes itself known, so it stretches out its hands toward you to hold you, and it leads you in its arms into that very knowledge it manifested to you. It adapts it to your capacity, molds your soul, that it may enter into you as vital humor, as blood, as air, and may produce in you the life, the goods, which its knowledge possesses. And taking the lead, more than mother, it remains on the watch to see when its daughter has absorbed the last drop of the good it made known to her, so as to open its breast again and pour itself inside out into her daughter, making known to her more value, other effects, which the life of my volition contains, and so repeat its crafting, because it wants to see in her the value of its life, the effects, the substance of its goods. Now the knowledges on my divine will instruct the human volition, and the creature acquires cognition and reason, that not only is it justice to let it reign and dominate as primary life in her soul, but it is the highest good that she receives, a great honor and glory, that this holy volition, by dominating, reaches the point of giving her the state of divine royalty, so that she may feel herself the daughter of the great king. So the royalty is also her own property. When the creature has come to comprehend all this, by way of knowledges and of lessons given to her by my divine volition, everything is done. My will has won the human will, and the human will has won the divine will. The knowledges about it are so necessary as to serve for drying up the bad humors, substituting them with holy humors. They are like the sun, darting through the human volition, and communicating to it its life, its sanctity, and the ardent desire to possess the good it contains. Therefore, be attentive to listen to its lessons, and correspond to such a great good. Fiat. June 4th. How one who lives in the divine will receives the creative power of the continuous creation. Bonding with the divine will. My abandonment in the Fiat continues. I am just newly born, and I feel the need to remain in its arms, to drink in large gulps the milk of its truths, to receive the waves of its light, the sweet refreshment of its warmth. I feel that the divine volition, too, wants to keep me in its arms, clasped to its bosom of light, to be able to infuse in me the continuous act of its life operating in me. In fact, life means to have acts that never cease. Otherwise it could not be called life. Therefore, if I did not want to remain in its arms, to receive these continuous reflections of its life, or if it did not want to keep me, I would not be able to form its life in me. So the word life would be reduced to a mere word, or a painted picture, not a reality. My Jesus, Oh, please do not permit this, and let it be that the reality of its life may be formed in my soul. But while I was trying to remain in the arms of the divine will, my sovereign Jesus, visiting my littleness, told me, "Daughter of my heart, you are right in feeling the extreme need to be in the arms of the divine will. In fact, to be in its arms means to place oneself at its disposal and to commit it to forming its life in the creature. If she does not place herself in its arms, she puts herself as though at a great distance, and life cannot be formed from afar, but in closeness, or rather, by being identified with the very life that one wants to receive. No mother conceives her baby from a distance, but inside her own womb. No seed germinates and forms its plant if it is not identified with and hidden under the earth. In the same way, to say that I want to form the life of the divine will in me, and not to remain in its arms, identified with it, bonding with it, to live of its very omnipotent breath, is impossible. You must know that our Supreme Being uses the same creative power which it used in creation, and continues to use it in the acts that the creature does in the divine will. Each act she does in it undergoes a new creation, and my fiat, by virtue of its creative power, remains conceived in the act of the creature. A continuous alternation takes place. She offers the act, and my divine will creates and conceives itself in her act. And while it is conceived, it forms its life, and makes it grow with the nourishment of its life and of its love. The heavens are stupefied, and the amazement is such that they become mute before one act alone of the creature, who contains within herself the creative force of the conception of the divine fiat. And just as she, by remaining in its arms, places herself at its disposal, so we, by holding her in our arms, place ourselves at her disposal. And she gives us her sweet pledge that we may make of it whatever we want. So her life, her acts, are as many pledges that she gives us, and we, holding her pledges, feel confident that we can put out our creative virtue and operate as God in the act of the creature. You must know that when our will operates, whether within ourselves or in the human act, it never puts its creative virtue aside, nor can it do so, because it possesses it by nature. Therefore, its acting is always creation. Hence, one who lives in our will receives into her act its creating act. And oh, how many marvels take place! Therefore be attentive and reverent and grateful. Receive into yourself, into your acts, this creating virtue that wants to do great things, not small, which alone are worthy of our adorable will. Fiat. June 15th, 1933. The intention forms the life of the action. It forms the veil with which to hide the divine action. The hidden actor. My poor mind is always occupied by the divine fiat, which wants to make itself not only life, but also nourishment. In fact, life is not enough if one has nothing with which to satiate his hunger. It would be like dying of starvation. Here is why often it gives me the delicious and celestial food of some more truths that regard the divine volition, so that it may not only nourish me, but its life may grow in me. And oh, how many times I feel the need for blessed Jesus to tell me something that regards his will, because I feel I am dying of hunger. And my lovable Jesus, as he himself wants and gives me this hunger, in visiting my little soul, told me, "My daughter, your desire to be nourished by my nourishing word wounds my heart, and I, wounded, run to you, to give you my divine nourishment, which I alone can give you. My word is life, and it forms in you the divine life. It is light, and it illumines you, leaving you in the illuminating virtue that always gives you light. It is fire, and it makes warmth arise within you. It is food, and it nourishes you. Now, you must know that I do not look at the external action of the creature, but at the intention that forms the life of the action. The intention is like the soul of the action, and the action becomes like the veil of the intention. It happens as with the soul to the body. It is not the body that thinks, that speaks, that palpitates, that operates and walks, but it is the soul that gives life to the thought, to the word, to the motion. So the body is veil to the soul, such that, while it covers it, and makes itself the bearer of it, yet the vital part, the action, the step, is of the soul. Such is the intention, true life of the actions. Now, if you call my divine will as life of your mind, as heartbeat of your heart, as action of your hands, and so forth, you will form the life of the intelligence of my will in your mind, the life of its actions in your hands, its divine step in your feet, in such a way that everything you do shall serve as veil to the divine life, which, with your intention, you have formed in the interior of your acts. But what is this intention? It is your will, which, making appeal to mine, empties itself of itself, and forms the void within its act, in order to give the place to the action of my will. And making itself the veil, it hides the extraordinary action of a God, even in the most ordinary and natural actions, so much so that on the outside one sees common actions. But if the veil of the human volition is removed, one finds, enclosed within, the operative virtue of the divine action. And this forms the sanctity of the creature, not the diversity of the actions, nor the works that make noise. No, but the common life, the necessary actions of life, which the creature cannot do without. These are all veils that can hide our will, and become the field in which God himself lowers himself to become the hidden actor of his divine actions. And just as the body veils the soul, so the will veils God. It hides him, and by means of its ordinary actions, it forms the chain of the extraordinary actions of God in her soul. Therefore, be attentive. Call my will in everything you do, and it will never deny you its act, so as to form in you, as much as it is possible for a creature, the fullness of its sanctity. Fiat. June 25th, 1933. If the divine will reigns, God seeks himself and finds himself in the creature, and she seeks herself in God and finds herself in his divine center. I felt my poor and little intelligence as though crowded with many thoughts regarding the divine will. And I thought to myself, and why does Jesus have so much interest? And he insists, yearns, prays, and wants the creatures to pray for his divine will to come and reign. It is true that for the creature this will be the greatest gain, to have in her power an immense volition, a power that is never exhausted, a love that always burns, a light that is never extinguished, a sanctity that seems incredible and that always grows. It can be said that there is nothing left for her to desire or to possess, because she possesses everything. But for God, what could be his gain, his glory, his honor? So while I was thinking of this and other things, my sovereign Jesus, visiting my little soul, all goodness told me, my daughter, dearest daughter of my will, the reason, the cause, the purpose for which I so much long for my divine will to take its place, its dominion, and to act as sovereign in the creature, is because our Supreme Being goes in search of itself in the human littleness. Think well of what it means. A God who goes in search of himself. But where? Perhaps in the expanse of the heavens? No. In the magnitude of the light that covers the whole earth? No. Perhaps in the multiplicity of the waters of the sea? No. But in the little human heart. We want to hide our immensity, our power, our wisdom, and the whole of our divine being in the creature. To hide ourselves inside of great things is not so great after all. But in the small things, we give greater display of love, power, and so forth. And since we are omnipotent and can do anything, it gives us greater delight, and we take more pleasure in hiding ourselves in the human littleness rather than in great things. And if we do not find our will in her, we can neither look for ourselves nor find ourselves in her. We would lack the space in which to place ourselves. All our divine attributes would feel impotent to hide our divine life there, where our will is not present. See then the reason why we want, we long, and for the creature also to long and pray that she may live of our divine volition? It is because we go in search of ourselves within her, and we want to find ourselves, as though in our own center. And do you think this is little? The great gain that we make, the glory, the honor we receive, that the little human heart would hide our will and our very life in order to give us double love, double power, wisdom, goodness, to engage in a contest with our very selves. If you do not comprehend this, it means that you are still blind in the interminable ways of my divine will. Now, if we, by wanting our fiat to reign in the creatures, seek and find ourselves in her, the creature, by wanting it, seeks herself in God, and in him she finds herself. See then what an exchange, what a crafting on both sides, what loving stratagems and devices. God, who continuously seeks himself in the creature. But where does he find himself? In the center of her. So he seeks, and seeks himself again. He calls himself over and over again. There, where his own love calls him. There, where his very life resides. And the creature imitates her God. She goes round and round. She calls and calls herself again. But where does she find herself? In the divine center. This indicates the exchange of life between the two of them, the same will which dominates the creature and God, the same love by which they are animated. So it is no wonder that what one does, the other does as well. And it is only my will that knows how to make these prodigies. Without it, everything is sterile. Everything is hindrance on the part of God and on the part of the creatures. We feel that we are prisoners of ourselves, and she feels herself imprisoned by her own human will, without flight, and all hampered within herself, and without divine life. Therefore, given all this, is it not right then for us to want nothing but for our will to dominate and reign? Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 32, Part 6. Fiat.